Imagine an ancient warship on a modern journey of discovery that could change everything you thought you knew about the Vikings.
Draken is the world's largest Viking ship that we could even conceive of.
It was important for me to investigate, are these Viking ships as good as the sources tells us?
Everything on this ship can kill me.
If I was a Viking, I would have turned right the f around and gone back in.
It's insane.
The settlement in North America is only temporary. Did they die? Did they starve? Did they freeze to death?
We're finding new things all the time. I think we should be able to end the debate once and for all.
This is Viking Quest, America.
Starboard, here, and midships?
Yeah.
All right, we are on the way now.
A multi-million-dollar, decade-long dream to follow the Viking voyage from old world to new is now a reality. Draken is the largest Viking ship built in modern times.
We had just left Reykjavik this morning, and we catch some good winds. 8-9 knots now. This is what we was dreaming of.
Draken has just left Iceland and has set course for Cape Farewell at the southern tip of Greenland, a journey of more than 1,200 kilometers. 34 people from 10 countries have banded together to complete a quest that has taken 6 years and $10 million to realize. The vessel's mission? To honor the 1,000th anniversary of the Viking arrival in the New World. Draken's ultimate target is L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. Only in the last half-century has the controversial claim that Vikings reached North America been proven beyond doubt by this one remote site. Other sites may yet be discovered, and Draken will push inland to show that the Vikings could have been the first Europeans to explore the Americas. A voyage into the unknown awaits.
It's so cold, but now everybody rest a little bit. It's probably gonna be much tougher later on.
Springtime on the North Atlantic is infamous for dangerous and deadly ice. But by day 3, the seas have remained clear. They push the ship to the edge, and she performs perfectly. Favorable winds propel their journey, supporting the theory that the ancient Vikings also crossed the Atlantic in the month of May.
The plan was to make a historical journey, and then you want to follow the route the Vikings did, and also the times they was leaving, always going early spring. It's empiric knowledge, and when you look at that, you saw that was a gap in May, where it was north or northeasterly winds, southeasterly winds. So I thought, of course, that's why they went in May.
That's a huge dream for me that has come true, and now we're in the middle of it all, between Iceland and Greenland, making our way. I like the freedom. I like the open air, I like the crew, I like the whole experience. It's just about sailing, 3 meals a day, get it to work and be a nice shipmate to the others. We got salt water in us, and we want to do this trip like they did 1,000 years ago.
On Draken, the crew faces the same challenges the Vikings did. From struggles of survival to the daily discomforts of life at sea.
The only shower on board is on deck and quite salty and cold.
We don't keep clean on board the ship. about once every second day, I try to change underwear. I've seen Pelayo, he actually takes some kind of shower on deck. But I think he's the most ambitious. But he's also from Southern Europe, so he has higher standards when it comes to hygiene.
Good morning, 8 to 12 watch.
We're all sharing the same kind of diseases and the same kind of environment. So at this moment, I've stopped caring that I'm sleeping with my face in someone else's pillow where they drooled the previous watch. And yeah, we're sharing a lot of things on this spot.
It's very tough on you, but also you transform in many ways. Your skin gets tougher. You adapt to this life. You can't be weak here. Then the dragon eats you.
One of the most difficult things actually on board Draken, it was going to the heads, as we call the toilets on board. So what I did was that I decided I will not drink any coffee, I will not drink any tea, I will not drink cold water, only hot water in small parts at a time, because then I don't need to go to the toilet so often, maybe only twice a day. So planning small parts of the day like that's really the life of Draken.
Despite popular notions of rough Viking appearances, experts now believe they were an unusually hygienic culture.
Vikings actually put quite a lot of effort into their personal appearance. It's a bit like English stereotypes of American airmen coming over in World War II, that they would seduce all the local women because they were charming and they were beautifully dressed and they were washed and well manicured, they looked after themselves. What we do know from the Viking Age is that we find a lot of evidence of combs. For example, a comb is a very frequent discovery in a Viking grave, and that suggests that, yeah, personally, looking after themselves, trying to look good was important. So if you're an aristocrat, you want to look clean, right? You want to look like you're not getting your hands dirty doing manual work. And there is this tension between the popular perception of the Vikings and the increasing body of scientific evidence that shows the Vikings are much more complex and interesting than those stereotypes.
4 days of perfect sea conditions have the crew feeling calm and confident. But it won't last much longer. The next point of land they'll see will be the southern tip of Greenland, known as Cape Farewell. They are now too far from any land for any chance of rescue by sea or air in the raging and icy North Atlantic.
80 nautical miles is the range for the helicopter. Here we are out the range. We are on our own. We are far out of all normal routes for ships, so we have to have very sharp lookout. The mates, they check the radar all the time. They have a standing order, wake me up if there is some ice or something. I can be back here in 30 seconds. I'm always sleeping with the clothes on. This is really dangerous waters. And we are quite alone here. If something happens, we have to fix it by ourselves.
It's day 5, and Greenland is just ahead. But after racing across the sea, Draken has her first encounter with ice.
My instructions to keep an eye on the ice, and it's very hard because you cannot really see the difference between the waves and the ice.
Come in. We have straight ahead, a little to starboard on the horizon, an iceberg, quite big.
The ice-packed shoreline slows the ship to a crawl. What should take 2 hours will now take 2 days to reach safe harbor. Night falls, making their navigation to the world's second-largest island even more treacherous. With no light, their radar will help, but those on lookout will have a more important role than ever.
Well, now we're getting closer to the coast of Greenland. We've crossed into a different water current where everything's a bit colder. We've got to take an extra lookout just to keep an eye out for ice.
They're threading an icy needle between pack ice on the shoreline and icebergs just offshore.
About 30 degrees off on starboard, we have one, and about 20 degrees on port, there's a second one over there. So we're going to come between the two and then kind of alter course a little bit to port so we can keep the ice, keep it around 10-15 miles away for safety.
Now we have 2 persons on lookout, and we're going southwest until we can come around the icy area. Then we can go up to Cacortok.
Cape Farewell is over there, around about 25 miles away. And then coming forth from that is about 3 miles of pack ice, and then there's some icebergs.
As they approach the harbor of Cacortok, the winds pick up and push Draken in exactly the wrong direction.
It's a lot of current. It's 2-3 knots of current going through. So it's a little bit tough to go in this area now.
How the Vikings navigated Greenland's icy shoreline is a mystery Draken and crew are facing head-on.
We have a lot more knowledge about what's going to be ahead because we have a map. We can look at where they're routing. The Vikings didn't, but our voyage is in no way certain, still, even though we know what we're looking at ahead.
Ready on the sick ring? Ready on the cup? No?
One mishap with a small iceberg and 34 people could end up in the sea.
Ready? Lower the sail down.
Bjorn makes the decision to lower the sail and rely on engine power for safer navigation.
Beautiful, everyone. Doing all right for being in the middle of the night? Gallows on, all right.
By morning, they've rounded Cape Farewell. The port of Cacortok is just a few kilometers away.
We are thrilled to come in here to Greenland, and it looks nice. Okay, what happened?
Then, the engine fails.
Is it stopped?
They have no sail and no power in ice-infested waters. With no sail or engine, Captain Bjorn Allander and crew know Draken's wooden hull could be torn to shreds in seconds.
The wooden ship of this type doesn't have any watertight sections. So if you were to run into an iceberg, you risk sinking the ship extremely fast.
Bjorn gets the engine started. The Viking ship is once again on its way.
Welcome to Greenland waters. We have made it so far, and we are nearly done with this trip. So I look forward to come ashore together with you.
According to the sagas, Eric the Red arrives from Iceland in 982 AD and becomes the first person to settle Greenland.
How did the Vikings manage to live here? Lots of rocks and no vegetation, and I don't know, some people say that it was much warmer during the Viking era, so it must have had to have been either that or they're very hardy individuals.
Beautiful, man.
Eric the Red called this barren place Greenland so that others would be drawn here. Through different eras and cultures, that spirit of adventure lives on.
We
should never forget to play with life, to play in a manner where we seek new horizons, where we seek new ways of doing things, and where we meet and greet people with friendliness and kindness wherever we come. So it is my hope that you will enjoy the upcoming days where you will be our guests in our city, and I'm sure that the people of Qavortok will be more than happy to make your stay a pleasant one. So once again, welcome. We are honored that you're here.
The Viking sagas say the area known as Hvalsey was claimed by Eric the Red's uncle. For centuries, the Vikings thrived here. And today, the ruins of Hvalsey's church still stand. The last known Norse settlement dated to 1408. The crew of Draken feels a connection to the past.
Today, you can still see a lot of traces of how the Scandinavians populated the north parts. You can see all the traces of the culture that the Vikings created there.
One of the biggest questions these modern mariners have is, how did the Vikings find their way here without maps or compasses?
They would have tried to cling to the land as much as possible. We can see that with the sea routes they used around the British Isles. They kind of hopped from island to island, so they were never far from the sight of land. I'm guessing as the knowledge of Vikings increased, there are tools and techniques they use for navigation. So, for example, following flocks of seabirds. Understanding how cloud formations might relate to distance from land, navigation by stars at night time.
Bjorn has another theory.
It's called a sun compass. And if you know the time, you know where the shadow comes, and you know which direction the sun was and what course you should have. There's also a story about this crystal to concentrate the sun, and if you hold it up like this, you can actually see through this where the sun is, even when it's cloudy. So that was one thing they probably used at that time. I should like to be at that time and ask them how they navigate, but this is the way I think it was done.
At some point, the Vikings left Greenland completely. No modern descendants remain. But why? Eric the Red settled here after being exiled from Iceland. 25 ships joined him, but only 14 completed the journey. Dozens or even hundreds died. The ones who made it brought animals and seeds. Archaeology suggests there was once hundreds of farms and over 3,000 Vikings thriving here. Then they disappeared.
We don't actually know what the story is of what happened to the last Greenlanders. Did they die? Did they starve? Did they freeze to death? Did they intermarry with the local Inuit populations? Or did they all just get in a boat and leave? And this is just one of the untold mysteries we have of the Viking settlement in the North Atlantic.
Now, one researcher believes he holds the answer.
The very last evidence we have for Vikings was early 1400s. It's very hard to know in any definitive way what actually led to the Vikings giving up or abandoning the place.
Climate change has been suggested as one possible explanation. Researchers made the assumption that it must have been warmer in the Viking era for them to survive.
People have argued for a long time that it got colder, and that meant it was more difficult for people to raise crops and raise their cattle and sheep in southern Greenland. Our own studies did not find any support for that idea.
Researchers looked for answers in core samples extracted from the bottom of a Greenland lake.
We lowered the instruments into the water, down into the sediment, and hammered the cores into the sediment and pulled up sediment cores, usually 1 or 2 meters in length.
These core samples contain tiny organic clues that unlock secrets spanning thousands of years.
In the sediments themselves, these record how the environment has changed. And the key to the whole story really was looking at DNA in the sediments, in the organic deposits.
That DNA analysis revealed it was drought, not a mini ice age, that drove the Vikings out of Greenland in the mid-14th century.
It got drier, it got increasingly difficult to keep their animals alive during the winter, and so on.
It may have been the final straw as economic changes swept Europe.
There was also a general deterioration in the exchange of ships back and forth trading. Europe was becoming more prosperous and there was less interest in trading that far away. All of those factors probably added up to just, the final gut punch, and they couldn't deal with it anymore.
Before they left Greenland, the Vikings made expeditions west. The sagas record that the legendary Leif Erikson discovered a place called Vinland.
Leif Erikson sailed to Vinland, to Newfoundland. He didn't make the crossing straight over the Labrador Sea. He followed the coast shoreline of Greenland. And then he turned a little bit west. And then he sailed south until he found a place that he thought was good enough for making a settlement in. And that was Vinland. He called it Vinland because he found grapes there. Vinland in Norwegian is wineland. It is situated at Newfoundland, and today it's called Onshore Meadows.
The crew of Draken's goal is to reach Onshore Meadows 1,000 years after the Vikings did and solidify the historical record. The layover in Greenland is brief. It's 1,100 kilometers from Greenland to Newfoundland, the final leg of their historic transatlantic journey.
I'm not so sure about what the weather's going to be like between here and Canada, but I know that the currents and the winds are usually running from the north in between Greenland and Canada. So if that's the case, then we'll have freezing water and cold temperatures again.
From here on in, the crew knows conditions will be colder than any they have ever faced, and the ice they encountered approaching Greenland will be nothing compared to what's ahead.
One thing that you discover in the Arctic regions is that the thing that you're imagining before, that it's very dark, it's very cold, it's very dead, but what you find is whales and seals and these shining icebergs and shining mountains. It's a place full of light and so much life.
I've never seen any icebergs before, so this was totally new to me. I will compare them to clouds, really. Clouds that you can touch and feel floating on the sea.
It's beautiful. It's nothing what I saw in my life so far, I think.
They are freaks of nature, very special shapes. They are like, nothing else.
The icebergs are the craziest thing I have seen in my life. They're so beautiful and dangerous and incredible creatures. If it sunk Titanic, it could easily sunk this little boat, you know?
Greenland's ice cycle begins each summer, and it's been happening for thousands of years.
Ice forms from snow that gets accumulated on the, I'll call it the inner
portions of Greenland, and over the course of thousands of years, it flows, and as the pressure builds up on the inland caps, it presses the ice out at the edges, and eventually they will be too heavy to hang off the edge. They will break and then fall into the ocean.
By summer's end, 40,000 bergs will begin a dangerous and deadly course, intersecting a navigation route known as Iceberg Alley.
Most of the icebergs that we see here on the east coast of Canada come from Greenland. Some of them are round, some of them are chunky, some of them can be large, very flat, tabular icebergs. If they're stuck in sea ice, they tend to keep their size and shape. When the sea ice goes or melts or moves away and the icebergs are exposed to ocean waves, they roll over and they crack and fracture, and if you happen to be around one, don't go near them because they can do spectacular things like crack in half and create large waves.
What's unique is we've got the Labrador Current. It carries the Arctic waters and the cold waters, and then that maintains the icebergs and prevents them from melting. So they travel down in that Labrador Current, and they all pose a risk to the shipping lanes that we have. We could get hundreds to thousands of icebergs in a given season that would need to be monitored, and people need to know where those are.
I thought this was going to be the most dangerous thing I ever done, and I think that was right. Sailing an open ship through the ice, it's crazy.
It may be crazy, but it's what their Viking forebears faced 1,000 years ago. On Iceberg Alley, the Draken crew is now 2 days out from Greenland. And it's not just the big bergs that are a danger. Smaller chunks, known as growlers, float just above the surface.
We are alter our course to starboard to not go into this here. So we have icebergs and we have a lot of floating ice here. The temperature is dropping now, and also the water temperature is dropping, so that we are coming to a more risky area now. We have 2 people on foredeck always looking for ice, iceberg and crawlers. We are most worried about the crawlers because they can be difficult to recognize on the radar. You have something over there, a big one. Crawler is flakes of compact ice, can be half a meter thick, and it can be huge. And if you hit one of this in this 7-8 knots, then you can damage the hull of the ship.
There's both the big icebergs, but what's more scary is probably the growlers, or like small chunks of ice that you hardly see sort of over the surface. But they're big, a lot of ice below. So you had to keep a very sharp lookout.
It's quite challenging to maneuver around the ship and to sail it. This little Viking ship takes a lot of skill and agility to maneuver.
But Draken's crew has 21st century support that their 11th century predecessors did not. They receive daily updates on the movement of bigger bergs from a team that's flying high above them. Steve Koch is tactical commander with the United States Coast Guard.
Behind us is our primary area reconnaissance, the C-130. It gives us the opportunity to have ice observers in the back of the plane, and then has space on the flight deck where myself and our radar ice observer works with the air crew to identify and accurately position icebergs.
The C-130's hunting ground, Iceberg Alley, extends from Greenland to Newfoundland.
Once icebergs pass below 48 north, we consider that into the shipping lanes, and more icebergs in the shipping lanes is more icebergs potentially that are going to affect the maritime community. So at this point, we are almost double the entire season total of last year.
It's a massive moving maze for the C-130 crew to map, tracking every iceberg in an area twice the size of Iceland. Each day, they monitor a different quadrant. Using the data they collect, they produce a warning for ships. A boundary they simply call the iceberg limit.
When you get really close to a huge iceberg, it's big and beautiful and very, very dangerous. I've seen icebergs that, in a snap, just break apart. I've seen icebergs where, when they calve off pieces, that they create these little mini tsunamis that could swamp vessels. That's why you don't want to get so close to an iceberg.
On the C-130, radar tools with high-resolution night and day capability can find and track almost every iceberg, even in the heaviest seas.
If we get something on radar that we can see beyond our visibility, we can come off track and go look to see what those targets are.
Now, as a field of icebergs appear on the horizon, the ice spotters get in position.
Well, we both want to try to spot new ones and verify the ones we have already on plot, both for their size and location.
The farther south icebergs travel, the more difficult they are to track, and the more dangerous and unpredictable they become.
When you see something that big, and when you're looking at them from an airplane, and you're realizing how big they are, it's scary to imagine what would happen if you actually hit it.
Especially in a wooden ship where the damage would be catastrophic. The dangers of Iceberg Alley challenge the most modern mariner, even with the latest science. Which is why so many scholars refuse to believe that the settlement at L'Anse Meadows in Newfoundland is Viking.
When we deal with, for example, the Vinland sagas, we're kind of dealing with sort of genres almost of medieval travel writing where reality and imagination have their sort of overlap. For example, the discovery of L'Anse Meadows was something that quite a lot of people just didn't believe.
It was a revelation archaeologist Birgitta Wallace had to see to believe.
The discovery of L'Anse Meadows was quite a sensation, but so many sites have been proclaimed to be Greenland that it was received with real skepticism. And even in 1973, when the Parks Canada excavations began, there was a lot of doubt expressed.
They just thought this was a story that they had found these lands and the Vikings didn't actually reach North America. But then, there's a sort of a team of people who were determined to find the evidence and eventually located something that proved the Vikings had been there.
Draken's crew intends to prove that the Vikings could have indeed made the dangerous crossing. But beyond that they could have ventured further into North America than anyone thought possible.
Leaving Greenland, it was a rocket ship start. We were told we're 16 meters a second, and it was definitely more than that. Our anemometer was reading 20 and sometimes up to 25 meters a second, which is a storm. It was quite amazing to be sailing in 2 or 3 meter seas and icebergs all around.
Made about 8 to 9 miles so far today. Squalls are coming with some wind and a little bit of snow. Apart from that, it's nice, good weather, good sailing weather. Now we have a good wind from a nice direction. It's like a bit northwesterly, and we can do a good speed and a good course on that.
Newfoundland is within reach, but to get there, ship and crew are pushed to their limit. Off the coast of Newfoundland, Draken has enjoyed 4 days of smooth sailing. But now, on day 5, the North Atlantic will deliver the icy blow for which it is feared.
We were all in our survival suits last night. You better be ready. If you go in the water without a survival suit, you have just seconds to have mobility in your fingers. If you don't think about what you need to do the moment you get in the water to get yourself ready to be rescued, chances are you'll have a very difficult time.
Sailing on Draken was the coldest experience I ever had. If you were unlucky and you got wet, you couldn't get warm again. I've never been cold in that way before. The Vikings must have struggled with the same, losing their body temperature.
The extreme cold is hard for me to describe because I've never experienced something like that before. I've heard that the soldiers during the First World War, they got trench feet out of being in the cold, wet trenches. I feel like I got trench hands or Viking hands from sailing on Draken.
Good morning. I wake up at 6 in the morning, put on some coffee, porridge and things like that. Oh. And here is the freezer. And this is my shopping bag. Everything takes a little bit longer time here because you're gonna fetch it from the stores below. Sometimes it's rough weather, so you have to be prepared with that. The conditions to eat on board has to be easy as well. The crew can eat from one bucket with a spoon or a fork. Often I do some kind of stew. I use veggies and meat and fish, those ordinary things. Everybody should have a decent meal.
The ancient Vikings also ate porridge with dried fish and meat. Centuries later, hearty food at sea continues to boost energy and morale.
The food is spectacular. Soups or stews or something like that for the most part, but that's exactly what we want. We want some hot, liquidy stuff that we can shovel down in this cold temperature.
Now we are into the belt close to Labrador coast, where we have a lot of icebergs and growlers. And we have tacked through all the icebergs so far without any problem. It's daylight now. But keep good lookout for all the growlers in the water. If we hit one of them, we can destroy the hull or the rudder. And in the middle of the night, we're probably gonna do a tack and go down south again towards Newfoundland. And hopefully, we will be there tomorrow.
Despite the ice, Bjorn has confidence in his ship and pride in his crew.
Hopefully, this will be the last night before we reach the North American continent. And then we have done the historical part of this voyage when we come to Newfoundland. And it's actually a big release for me. We have been working for this in 2 years. To make this expedition for real. Now we are heading down towards Newfoundland, and we are for the moment heading in 9 knots or something, and we are a little bit afraid of the night is coming now, so maybe we have to slow down the speed in some way.
Tonight, captain and crew will face conditions so brutal, they cannot imagine how the Vikings survived.
We had some wind and snow, small squalls coming, gusts. It's kind of nice to be snug down for the night, so you don't have to do things like this in the dark.
Just on the horizon at the moment, there's a squall. We might come right behind it, but I don't know, it probably hit us. But the squalls were bringing stinging sleet. You know, we really had to shield your eyes, get really bunkered down.
The seas are already raging, and the flapping sail is becoming a threat.
It's not possible to tack up there with just one watch, so we have to get down the sail.
Bjorn pushes ahead on engine power. Woodrow thinks he's acted too soon. They haven't had time to secure the lines. But the captain's word is law.
The captain just wants to motor all the way through and maneuver, and it's really pissing me the hell off. You know, if we just can relax for 10 minutes so we can get a maneuver through, then we don't have all this slamming around and dangerous ropes knocking people into the side of the ship.
Loose ropes and a flapping sail are a lethal danger on the icy deck. The crew once again put survival suits on and discover the trade-off. The suits will keep them alive in the event of going overboard, but they are freezing on deck.
When we had on the survival suit, that was when I was the most cold, because you were not able to move so well, and then you just sat down or lay down still, and then you got even colder.
It's the final night before reaching Newfoundland, and there's extra tension in the air. It's a night no one will ever forget. And after 40 days at sea and 5,000 kilometers of treacherous conditions, Draken is finally within sight of her goal.
North America, here we come.
Yeah!
But will she be able to solve the further mystery of just how far into America the Vikings explored?